This is perhaps the greatest prison break no one ever told you about. The escape attempt at the wall in 1996 was nothing short of audacious. It was clear to one inmate that breaking free required more than just individual effort. It demanded teamwork and careful planning. Gathering 6 fellow prisoners, each bringing their unique skills to the table, they formed a formidable team prepared to confront the challenges ahead. As the plan progressed, 2 members began digging the escape tunnel, a critical phase in their elaborate scheme. However, their progress was abruptly interrupted by the piercing wail of prison alarms. Chaos erupted as another inmate stabbed a guard, plunging the facility into a state of emergency. In the midst of the commotion, guards swiftly moved to restore order, corralling prisoners back into their cells. The urgency of the situation amplified the pressure on the 2 inmates within the tunnel. They faced the daunting task of evading detection amidst heightened security measures. The narrative of this escape attempt brims with tension and suspense, illustrating the inmates' resourcefulness and resilience in the face of adversity. So let's dive into the video to uncover the full story. This prison, known as the Western Penitentiary, is located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and stands as one of the oldest correctional facilities in both America and the world. The prison, operational from 1882 to 2005, boasted an impressive tenure of 123 years. Its inception marked a milestone in correctional facility design, lauded for its modernity and progressive approach towards inmate rehabilitation. Initially conceived as a place of reform, it aspired to uplift those within its walls. However, as decades elapsed, the prison's reputation took a dark turn, mirroring the grim realities of many American correctional institutions of the time. What was once envisioned as a beacon of transformation gradually devolved into a place synonymous with torment and despair. Dubbed the wall for its formidable security measures, the prison became a symbol of impregnability. Its architecture resembled that of a medieval fortress, featuring towering walls constructed from robust materials such as cement and stone, reinforced with iron. These imposing structures served as a stark reminder of the insurmountable barrier between the inmates and the outside world. Throughout its long history, the wall remained impervious to escape attempts, solidifying its reputation as an impenetrable bastion of confinement. Despite numerous inmates passing through its gates, not a single one succeeded in breaking free from its confines. The prison's legacy of security was unparalleled, instilling fear and awe in both its occupants and those outside its imposing walls. The prison's formidable defenses extended not just above ground, but also 3 meters below, creating a subterranean barrier to thwart any attempts at escape. Internally, additional layers of security were implemented, with multiple gates dividing cell blocks and sections, ensuring tight control over inmate movements. External surveillance was equally stringent, with watchtowers strategically positioned to monitor the prison perimeter. Among the inmates was Nuno Pontes, a seasoned safecracker renowned for his mastery in breaking into safes and vaults. His criminal exploits ranged from pilfering stores and offices to raiding private homes, with Nuno exhibiting a penchant for playing the modern-day Robin Hood, sharing his ill-gotten gains with those in need. Despite his altruistic facade, Nuno reserved the lion's share for himself, indulging in a lavish lifestyle replete with luxury cars, fine dining, and extravagant travel. However, Nuno's criminal escapades eventually caught up with him, leading to a 15-year sentence in the Western Penitentiary, colloquially known as the Wall. Inside the prison, Nuno bore witness to its deteriorating conditions, exacerbated by severe overcrowding and escalating violence among the inmates. Daily life was marked by brutal confrontations, with inmates resorting to deadly force over trivial disputes, leaving a trail of bloodshed in their wake. For Nuno, navigating the treacherous waters of prison life meant adapting to the ever-present danger lurking within the wall's confines. As Nuno and Greg deliberated on their escape plan, they realized the importance of discretion and precision. They understood that any attempt to breach the prison's formidable defenses required meticulous planning and coordination. The initial idea of demolishing a prison wall was swiftly discarded, deemed too risky and likely to result in immediate detection. Instead, they focused on exploiting vulnerabilities within the prison's infrastructure. They meticulously mapped out the layout of the facility, identifying blind spots in surveillance coverage and weaknesses in security protocols. Through covert observation and discreet inquiries, they gathered crucial intelligence, laying the groundwork for their daring escape. Their plan hinged on subtlety and timing. They knew they had to strike when the guards were least vigilant, and the prison's defenses were at their weakest. As they fine-tuned their strategy, Nuno and Greg recruited trusted allies among their fellow inmates, forming a clandestine network of co-conspirators willing to aid their bid for freedom. Months passed as they patiently awaited the opportune moment to set their plan in motion. Each day brought new challenges and setbacks, but their determination remained unwavering. Finally, in the summer of 1996, the pieces fell into place, and the stage was set for their audacious escape. As Nuno and Greg weighed their options, they recognized the inherent risks and challenges posed by each potential escape route. While the notion of hitching a ride on construction trucks seemed plausible at first, the meticulous scrutiny imposed by the prison administration swiftly rendered it unfeasible. The constant head counts conducted before any vehicle departed from the premises left no room for undetected stowaways, effectively closing off this avenue of escape. Undeterred by setbacks, they turned their attention to the tried and true method of tunneling, an approach fraught with peril yet bearing the promise of freedom. Aware of the history of failed tunneling attempts within the prison, Nuno was acutely aware of the need for meticulous planning and flawless execution. Recognizing their own limitations, Nuno and Greg sought out a third accomplice skilled in the art of tunneling. Their search led them to Charlie Vance, an inmate rumored to possess the requisite expertise. With Charlie on board, they formed a formidable trio, each contributing their unique skills to the ambitious endeavor. The success of their escape plan hinged on meticulous preparation and flawless execution. Together, they meticulously mapped out the route of their underground passage, accounting for potential obstacles and devising contingency plans for every conceivable scenario. Kevin Billingsley's expertise in excavation presented a valuable asset to Nuno's escape plan. With a background in mining and a history of daring exploits, Kevin possessed the technical skills essential for tunnel construction. Despite harboring his own escape aspirations, Kevin had been stymied by the absence of a concrete plan, until Nuno's proposition offered a tangible path to freedom. Nuno's strategic acumen and persuasive charm played a pivotal role in recruiting Kevin to their cause. Recognizing Kevin's potential contributions, Nuno outlined a clear division of labor. While Nuno would handle the logistical intricacies of tunnel alignment and emergence points, Kevin would spearhead the laborious task of excavation. Assured of his pivotal role in the escape scheme, Kevin enthusiastically committed to the endeavor, aligning his objectives with Nuno's vision for freedom. Their alliance marked a crucial turning point in the escape plan, as Nuno now possessed the necessary manpower and expertise to realize their ambitions. With Kevin on board, Nuno's focus shifted to identifying the ideal location for tunnel commencement within the labyrinthine confines of the prison. To accomplish this daunting task, Nuno recognized the need to infiltrate the prison workforce, a feat that necessitated securing a job within the facility's confines. Nuno's quest for a strategic vantage point within the prison hierarchy led him to the maintenance department, a pivotal hub overseen by the prison engineer. This role offered unparalleled access to the prison's inner workings, encompassing vital systems like plumbing, electrical infrastructure, and ventilation. Moreover, the engineer's office housed a treasure trove of blueprints detailing every facet of the prison's architecture, rendering it an invaluable resource for Nuno's reconnaissance efforts. Securing a position in the maintenance workshop proved to be a coup for Nuno, affording him unfettered access to the prison's infrastructure and layout. With his new role, Nuno embarked on a meticulous information-gathering mission, meticulously cataloging every detail of the prison's geography and divisional structure. However, this endeavor demanded patience and subtlety, as Nuno spent months assimilating crucial intelligence while avoiding detection. His persistence paid off when a fortuitous maintenance issue arose one day, providing Nuno with an opportune moment to survey the prison's architecture discreetly. As Nuno meticulously scrutinized the prison's layout, he sought the ideal location to commence tunnel excavation. Each detail observed during his reconnaissance mission contributed to the formulation of a comprehensive escape strategy. The warehouse situated just beyond the prison confines played a pivotal role in Nuno's escape strategy. Functioning as a conduit for goods and supplies entering the prison, it served as a nexus between the penitentiary and the outside world. Due to its location outside the prison walls, the warehouse enjoyed relatively lax security measures, making it an attractive egress point. Nuno recognized the warehouse's strategic significance, envisioning it as the ideal terminus for their escape tunnel. Its proximity to the street offered a direct route to freedom once they breached the prison's confines. With the tunnel's endpoint identified, Nuno's next task was to determine the optimal starting point, ideally situated as close to the warehouse as possible to minimize tunnel length and maximize efficiency. Fortuitously, Nuno's employment in the maintenance building, highlighted in orange, presented an opportune starting point for the tunnel. Positioned directly opposite the external warehouse, marked in green, the maintenance building provided a discreet entry point for their clandestine excavation efforts. From this vantage point, they could clandestinely tunnel towards the warehouse without arousing suspicion. After meticulously scrutinizing the prison's architectural schematics, Nuno stumbled upon a critical discovery: a concealed chamber nestled within the maintenance building. This hidden room harbored a clandestine feature, a crawl space concealed beneath its floorboards, clandestinely concealed from casual observers. Referencing the blueprint, the maintenance edifice was divided into two distinct compartments. On the right stood the bustling maintenance workshop where Nuno plied his trade, while the left quarter housed a secluded chamber integral to their escape plan. This overlooked room, with its subterranean crawl space, served as the clandestine genesis of their tunneling endeavor. Hence, gaining entry through the door proved daunting, if not all but impossible. Their alternative route involved breaching the sturdy stone brick walls encasing the maintenance room. If Nuno could penetrate these barriers, he could access the crawl space hidden behind. The most viable approach to breach the wall was by employing a drill, conveniently accessible within the maintenance workshop. Yet Nuno couldn't simply requisition the drill and commence his clandestine endeavor. He needed a pretext, a ruse to divert attention from his true intentions. Consequently, he orchestrated an incident, purposefully damaging a water pipe adjacent to the maintenance room he intended to infiltrate. Having caused the disruption, Nuno promptly reported the incident to the responsible maintenance engineer, volunteering to repair the damage he himself had wrought. Seizing the opportunity, he acquired the requisite tools for the purported repair, including the drill. However, prison regulations mandated that he be supervised by a guard while handling potentially hazardous equipment like the drill. Consequently, Nuno ventured out accompanied by a guard, ostensibly to rectify the broken pipe. As Nuno began his charade of repairing the damaged pipe, with the guard hovering nearby, his attention divided, Nuno seized fleeting moments of distraction to covertly pivot to the adjacent wall and surreptitiously initiate drilling. The guard, preoccupied with overseeing the repair work, scarcely registered Nuno's surreptitious actions, assuming him to be diligently executing his assigned task. Thus, Nuno skillfully exploited these lapses in vigilance to advance his clandestine project unnoticed. But unfortunately, the drill wasn't powerful enough to effectively penetrate the wall. It was making progress, but it would take an excessively long time. Surely, the guard would realize something was amiss. Therefore, Nuno concluded that the strategy involving breaching the wall was futile. It was an impasse, an insurmountable obstacle. With this avenue closed off, he found himself compelled to revisit the option he had previously dismissed as unattainable, the door. To gain entry through the door, he would require the key. However, obtaining the key seemed an insurmountable challenge, given that it was exclusively held by the guards. Thus, the trio reconvened to devise a plan to procure a duplicate key. Their objective was to identify a material capable of capturing an impression of the key, facilitating its replication. They embarked on a trial and error process, experimenting with various substances like soap, oatmeal, and eventually settling on styrofoam, which proved adept at retaining a precise imprint of the key. Armed with this imprint, they planned to fashion a copper replica using tools available in the maintenance workshop. Yet, the initial hurdle was obtaining the key's impression. Their scheme involved observing a guard during his inspection rounds, discerning which key he employed to unlock the door. However, snatching the key from the guard was no straightforward task. To create a diversion, Nuno orchestrated a staged altercation between two inmates, knowing the guard would be compelled to intervene. Seizing the momentary distraction, Nuno covertly pressed the key into a piece of styrofoam, successfully obtaining its imprint without detection. Surprisingly, the process unfolded seamlessly, allowing Nuno to abscond with the key's impression unnoticed. Subsequently, they crafted a replica key from the imprint. When the replica was ready, they faced the daunting task of testing it on the door, a risky endeavor given the vigilant oversight of the watchtower nearby. Despite the distance, the watchtower guard had a clear line of sight to their location, with ground-level guards also posing a risk. Greg stood lookout while Nuno inserted the key into the maintenance room door, aiming to unlock it. Unfortunately, their hopes were dashed when the key snapped inside the lock, its fragile construction unable to withstand the turning force. Now, with a broken piece lodged within the lock, panic set in as they contemplated the repercussions of their predicament. Leaving the broken key could trigger a security sweep during routine patrols, jeopardizing their entire escape plan. Their only recourse was to extract the broken key discreetly, utilizing tools from Nuno's nearby workplace, the maintenance workshop. Swiftly, Nuno dashed to the workshop, where he had previously procured copies of the keys to access the tools. Armed with a pair of pliers, he hurried back to the maintenance room door, where Greg maintained vigilance. With deft precision, Nuno worked to extract the broken key, ensuring their covert operation remained undetected. Remarkably, their actions went unnoticed by the guards, allowing them to complete the task without incident. Once the broken key was removed, Nuno swiftly returned the pliers to their rightful place, and they departed the scene to regroup and strategize their next move. Though their initial attempt with the key had faltered, they remained undeterred. Armed with the imprint of the key, they resolved to fashion a sturdier replacement. After diligent effort, they successfully crafted a new key. When they tested it, it opened the door smoothly, granting them access to the coveted room, a triumph after their arduous efforts and close calls. Within the confines of the room lay a small metal gate, serving as the gateway to the crawlspace where their tunneling endeavor would commence. Before delving into the excavation, Nuno devised a cunning scheme to divert the guards' attention. His plan involved initiating an underground alcohol production operation, although the specifics of its execution remained undisclosed. Despite the clandestine nature of their endeavor, they managed to concoct substantial quantities of alcohol, distributing it discreetly among the inmates within the prison yard. This ingenious diversion successfully redirected the guards' focus, who became wholly engrossed in uncovering and halting the illicit brewing and distribution activities. Unbeknownst to them, this elaborate ruse served as a smokescreen for the true operation underway, the clandestine tunneling beneath the maintenance room. As the excavation commenced, obstacles began to surface. One notable challenge arose during routine guard inspections. On one occasion, while returning from an outdoor recreation period, Nuno encountered a guard stationed at the dormitory gate, tasked with conducting inmate searches. Aware of the risk posed by the keys in his possession, including the crucial key to the maintenance room, Nuno faced the dilemma of potential discovery. Nonetheless, adhering to a strategy of transparency, he confidently surrendered all his keys to the guard for inspection, without attempting to conceal or divert attention from them. In a stroke of luck, the guard concluded the search without detecting anything suspicious, returning the keys to Nuno and allowing him to proceed to his cell unhindered. Despite essentially placing the key to his freedom in the guard's hands, Nuno's confident demeanor proved instrumental in navigating the precarious situation unscathed. As Nuno and Kevin pressed forward with their tunneling endeavor, they encountered further setbacks. Their comrade, Greg, who played a pivotal role in distributing the homemade alcohol to distract the guards, found himself ensnared in the consequences of their diversionary tactic. Greg's involvement in the alcohol operation resulted in his apprehension and subsequent placement in solitary confinement. Initially, it seemed Greg might be reinstated to aid in the tunneling effort once released from solitary. However, an ill-fated decision to assault a guard during his confinement led to an extension of his isolation for several months. This development effectively sidelined Greg from the tunneling operation, leaving Nuno and Kevin to carry on without him. Despite the setback, Kevin, leveraging his expertise in drilling, assumed the mantle of leadership in the excavation efforts. Guiding Nuno through the intricacies of tunnel construction, Kevin imparted his knowledge, fostering a collaborative dynamic between the two inmates as they alternated shifts digging. To mitigate the risk of detection, meticulous precautions were taken. Each digger entered the room alone, with the other securing the door behind them to prevent arousing suspicion among the guards. The digging process was far from easy. Their digging tool was just pieces of wood, and they had a small bucket to carry out the dirt from the tunnel. They also had helmets with lights stolen from one of the prison buildings. Digging progressed into a formidable challenge due to the marshy consistency of the soil, a consequence of the prison's location on a riverbank. With the river coursing directly in front of the prison, the earth resembled mud, necessitating the use of wooden implements to penetrate and extract the mire-laden soil. Buckets became indispensable for removing the mud, which was then deposited in the crawl space above. Despite the relatively short distance of the tunnel, the task demanded considerable effort, primarily because it needed to traverse the prison walls, which extended 3 meters below ground. The blueprint from the maintenance workshop indicated that the tunnel had to be at least 4 meters deep to bypass the wall's subterranean reach. Moreover, horizontally, they estimated a length of approximately 12 meters, necessitating the removal of approximately 15 tons of soil or mud. Aside from the sheer physical exertion, myriad risks loomed. Foremost among these was the specter of tunnel collapse, compounded by the absence of structural reinforcement. Passing trucks on the nearby road further compounded the danger, as their vibrations imperiled the tunnel's stability. Additionally, as they delved deeper, oxygen levels dwindled, amplifying respiratory challenges. Lacking any ventilation mechanism, they could only toil briefly within the tunnel before ascending to replenish their oxygen supply. He had been watching them and noticed their daily entries and exits from the locked maintenance room. However, this inmate named Carmen Keller wanted to be part of the operation. Carmen was serving a life sentence for second-degree murder, a type of crime in American law that can be unintentional, such as vehicular homicide, due to reckless driving or a killing in a moment of drunkenness or rage, indicating that the crime wasn't premeditated. Suspicions voiced by Carmen compelled them to reluctantly include him in their group. Although Nuno harbored reservations about Carmen's involvement, the risk of exposure outweighed his concerns, prompting them to expand the group to 3 members: Nuno, Kevin, and now Carmen. While Carmen's inclusion was initially involuntary, it brought unforeseen advantages beyond additional labor for tunneling. With his position in the prison's education and rehabilitation department, Carmen possessed privileges facilitating their escape scheme. These included unrestricted access to most areas of the prison, affording him ample time and opportunities for clandestine excavation. Moreover, his role enabled him to issue passes permitting inmates to leave their cells or work areas, further bolstering their operational flexibility. Amidst their preparations, Nuno recognized the need for a getaway vehicle upon emerging from the tunnel. Lamentably, neither he nor their associates had connections outside the prison capable of providing assistance. Recognizing this deficiency, Nuno resolved to recruit a 4th member with external connections. Thus, they welcomed George Kennard, an elderly individual with outside affiliations, into their group. Kennard, a convicted murderer serving a life sentence, hailed from Pittsburgh, the same city where the prison was situated. He purportedly had connections capable of procuring a getaway car for their escape post-breakout. His inclusion in the group was solely for this purpose, as his age precluded him from participating in the digging efforts. The trio responsible for excavation, Nuno, Kevin, and Carmen, redoubled their efforts to hasten the completion of the tunnel. Nuno and Carmen capitalized on their morning work schedules to dig, while Kevin contributed during the afternoon and early evening, when inmates were engaged in outdoor recreation. After a month of relentless toil, they achieved a depth of 4 meters and a horizontal distance of 9 meters, positioning them directly beneath the prison wall per the blueprints. Despite nearing the culmination of their endeavor, the ever-looming threat of discovery persisted. Disaster struck one December day in 1996. Nuno, along with Kevin and Carmen, proceeded to the maintenance room. While Kevin and Carmen resumed digging, Nuno secured the door behind them before heading to the prison's dining hall for a meal. Suddenly, the blare of prison alarms pierced the air, prompting guards to order all inmates to return to their cells. The alarm sounded due to an inmate's attack on 2 guards, plunging the prison into a state of emergency. As inmates were corralled back to their cells for a head count and search, a dilemma emerged. Kevin and Carmen were trapped in the maintenance room, laboring on the tunnel, while Nuno and the other inmates were ordered to their cells. Nuno faced a pressing challenge, swiftly devising a plan to extricate his partners before their clandestine operation was exposed, risking prolonged solitary confinement and exacerbated sentences for all involved. As the guards began rounding up the inmates to take them back to their cells, Nuno, standing in line to enter his dormitory, asked 2 inmates to start a fight, promising them a reward. While the guard was distracted from breaking up the fight, Nuno took the opportunity to slip away from the coop and ran to the maintenance room to free his friends. With the prison in emergency mode and the imminent risk of being spotted by a guard, Nuno had to seize the moment. Hastily unlocking the maintenance room door, he made a beeline for the crawl space. Upon reaching the tunnel entrance, he discovered Kevin and Carmen poised to exit, having discerned the commotion from the alarms. Their fortunate proximity to the tunnel's end proved advantageous, considering the arduousness of navigating its depth and length. Urgently, Nuno instructed them to vacate the room. Kevin and Carmen swiftly complied, dressing and departing without encountering any guards nearby. Remarkably, the trio managed to return to their cells without raising suspicion, narrowly averting potential disaster. This harrowing experience deepened the camaraderie among the 4 inmates, fostering a greater willingness to heed Nuno's leadership, recognizing his valor in a critical moment. Their narrow escape fueled a newfound determination to expedite the tunnel's completion. However, their focus shifted to the post-escape plan after Old George failed to procure a getaway car as promised. Nuno pivoted to a new strategy, stealing a car upon fleeing the prison. Lacking expertise in car theft, they sought out a new member specialized in this field. Andrew Hain, serving a 10-year sentence for thefts and assaults, emerged as the ideal candidate. To their surprise, Andrew wasn't the final addition to the team. Soon after, a 6th member, Thomas, joined their ranks. Unlike Andrew, Thomas didn't offer any strategic advantage to the group. Nuno's decision to include him was purely out of friendship and compassion. Thomas, an elderly man grappling with deteriorating health and vision problems that could potentially lead to blindness, was brought into the fold solely because of his close bond with Nuno. Despite Thomas's limited capacity to contribute, the team trusted Nuno's judgment and welcomed him without objection, expanding their membership to 6 as they entered the final phase of their escape plan. With the horizontal tunnel complete, the next challenge loomed: the vertical ascent to breach the floor of the external warehouse. This phase of the tunneling posed significant risks, as digging overhead carried the threat of a collapse, potentially burying the digger alive. Despite the danger, Nuno, asserting his leadership, volunteered to undertake the task. Ascending the tunnel, Nuno carefully dislodged soil and mud, allowing gravity to aid in their removal. Gradually, he carved his way upwards, navigating the 4-meter ascent until finally, a rush of fresh air signaled their proximity to the surface. However, their journey was far from over. The reinforced steel floor of the warehouse presented their final obstacle. Breaking through this barrier required heavy-duty tools, which Nuno had foreseen. Having previously made copies of the keys to the maintenance workshop, he had access to the necessary equipment stored within, leveraging his familiarity with the workshop to secure the tools essential for their escape. However, gaining access to the workshop was typically restricted, especially for unauthorized purposes like theirs. Nuno disregarded these restrictions and entered the workshop, procuring a large drill, a hydraulic jack typically used for lifting cars, and other necessary tools. Together, they drilled multiple holes in various sections of the concrete floor, aiming to weaken it. However, the drill proved insufficient to penetrate the concrete entirely, necessitating the use of the hydraulic jack. They strategically positioned the jack, applying pressure until the concrete gave way, creating a hole above them. However, the steel reinforcement bars remained intact, prompting them to retrieve an electric saw from the workshop designed for cutting through steel. With the steel bars severed, the tunnel exit was fully opened, granting them access to the external warehouse. This room, designated for mechanical work, was seldom used and located away from regular worker and staff areas, making it an inconspicuous exit point. Although the exit hatch was prepared, they postponed their escape until the following day, January 8, 1997, to minimize the risk of detection. They would utilize permits issued by Carmen, leveraging his position in the prison's education and rehabilitation department, to leave their cells early on the pretext of assigned tasks or appointments within the department. Filled with anticipation and anxiety, the 6 inmates remained in their cells that night, with Nuno unable to sleep. As dawn broke on January 8, 1997, they set their plan in motion, using the permits distributed by Carmen to leave their cells after 6 a.m., ostensibly for assigned tasks. Their true destination, however, was the maintenance room and the tunnel. With time being of the essence, they hastened their movements, knowing that the morning inmate count at 10 a.m. would reveal their absence. The 6 of them assembled in the maintenance room, closing the door behind them as they prepared to embark on their daring escape. Placing the car thief in the middle of their group for their initial traversal of the tunnel was a strategic move, ensuring they had assistance in case of any complications. Navigating the tunnel proved to be challenging, especially for the elderly members, particularly Thomas, whose inclusion stemmed from compassion due to his fragile health and impaired vision, making the passage notably arduous for him. Encountering difficulties with the elderly during the crossing caused some delays, but with concerted effort and mutual aid, they successfully emerged on the other side, one by one. Their first task upon exiting the tunnel was to change out of their prison uniforms and into civilian clothing. Remarkably, the prison allowed inmates to retain personal clothing alongside their prison garb, a policy likely unique to that state at the time, enabling them to quickly change into civilian attire by approximately 7:30 a.m., affording them roughly 2.5 hours before the 10 a.m. inmate count. Their next challenge was to exit the warehouse undetected. Although the room's door led directly to the street, a watchtower positioned directly above the gate they planned to use for their exit posed a potential obstacle, with the guard likely to observe them. Anticipating this scenario, Nuno had pilfered worker helmets from within the prison. Donning the helmets, they aimed to pass as workers leaving the warehouse. Walking confidently out of the side door, the 6 individuals approached the guard, who acknowledged them without suspicion. Their immediate priority after reaching a safe distance from the prison was to procure a vehicle. Leveraging Andrew's expertise as a car thief, they quickly accessed a car and hotwired it, allowing them to depart swiftly, heading straight for Texas. Nuno had contacts in Texas who could potentially arrange forged identities for them. By the time of the 10 a.m. inmate count, the guards discovered the 6 inmates' absence, prompting them to alert the authorities and initiate a search in the vicinity of the prison. Placing the car thief in the middle of their group for their initial traversal of the tunnel was a strategic move, ensuring they had assistance in case of any complications. And by January 18, 1997, 10 days had passed since the escape, and Nuno and his companions were still waiting for their forged identities. That day, Carmen and Nuno went out for a drive when a patrol car spotted them and attempted to pull them over. However, they refused to comply with the police order, and Carmen, who took the wheel, accelerated, initiating a police pursuit through the streets. Eventually, Carmen brought the car to a halt near a forest, and both he and Nuno fled on foot. Although the police managed to apprehend Carmen, Nuno successfully evaded capture, maneuvering through the trees. Nuno remained on the run, concealing himself in the forests for a full 2 days. After ensuring he had eluded the authorities, he decided to return to the hotel, where he found his anxious friends awaiting him, unaware of the recent events. Nuno informed them of Carmen's arrest. Faced with a decision about whether to leave the area or stay, they opted to remain in the same city to await the delivery of their forged identities, a process that had been eagerly anticipated for days. However, they planned to relocate to a different hotel to evade detection. Unbeknownst to them, Carmen, now in police custody, betrayed them by disclosing their new hotel's location to the authorities. Fortunately, by the time the police acted on Carmen's tip, the group had already moved to a different hotel within the same city and state of Texas, still awaiting their forged documents. Under pressure from the authorities, Carmen divulged more information, including the identity of the individual they were in contact with regarding the forged documents. Providing the police with the man's name and description enabled them to locate and closely monitor his movements. As this contact prepared to deliver the forged identities, he visited the hotel to meet Nuno and his associates. Unaware of the police surveillance, his arrival at the new hotel triggered a dramatic intervention by the police and SWAT team, who surrounded the premises. They raided the hotel and entered the room where Nuno and his companions were staying, arresting them all. Thus, the 6 inmates' brief taste of freedom came to an end on January 20, 1997, after only 12 days. Despite months of meticulous planning and effort, they experienced only a fleeting period of liberty before facing severe consequences. The punishments imposed were more severe than anticipated, serving as a harsh reminder of the consequences of their actions. While their sentences were not significantly extended, Nuno, for instance, was subjected to 14 years of solitary confinement, spending 23 hours a day in his cell with only 1 hour of outdoor time. Such severe punishment exceeded what might have been deemed appropriate. This concludes the story, a narrative of intricate planning, fleeting freedom, and severe repercussions. If you found this tale compelling, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, activate the notification bell, and explore our previous captivating stories.